When you look at royal history, and in particular things like the wonderful, and I really enjoy Trooping the Colour, the biggest free royal show that you can get every year. If you've ever seen it, it is great, you know, because it's Britain at its best. Colourful, all the pageantry, and you get to see the royals for free. Sparkling carriages, and it's really one of those big events. And as many people know who, you know, study royal history, it was simply moved to the middle of the year because the monarch decided they didn't want to risk the weather. Let me tell you, chums, I've been to many Trooping the Colours when the heavens have opened up. It doesn't matter what month you do it, it just happens. I mean, this year we had absolutely glorious weather. It was wonderful. When you think about the King's coronation, it was all right up until a certain point, wasn't it? And then, yes, you know, and then it came back again for the coronation concert. But when you look at these wonderful men and women that make up all of our wonderful armed forces, the Royal Navy, the Royal Air Force and the British Army, well, there's one thing that really changed, and this was all thanks to a wonderful monarch, none other than Queen Victoria. As ever, let me explain. Morning, how are you? I'm all right, thank you so much. And as ever, welcome one and all brand new subscribers. History is full of, oh, I know, you tell it, I can hear you, yes, all right, whenever away. Yes. I know I'm out here, it's fine, you know. People do smirk, you know, when I'm out in the buses, and yeah. Well, some people wave back as if you're waving to them. Then you have to wonder if you know them. I know it's very confusing. This is the problem doing this job, right? Now, there's the problem, right? That if you are, of course, one of the brave, brilliant men and women that make up our armed forces, when you see them on display, like Trooping the Colour, you think, wow, you know, it does look great. And as you know, I've mentioned this before, when you go to Whitehall and you see the guards literally in the, you know, guarding the palace, and the things that they have to put up with some of the wacky tourists, to put it politely, well, you can understand why they're so highly trained. But things were a lot different, you know, during the reign of Queen Victoria. And this was because, and I've mentioned this to you before, that I was fascinated when we did a certain aspect of history at school in medieval times, when the press gangs would go around pressing people to join the ship. Sometimes they'd have money and get them drunk in the pub, and they'd find them on the boat, you know, literally sailing off to a land they had no idea about, maybe not coming back for years, or if not at all. Now, Queen Victoria decided that this wasn't the right idea to do. You see, way back in the 1800s, many members of the, you know, Queen's Army, the King's Army, all that sort of stuff, they would literally recruit in public. So they marched around looking absolutely splendid, full regalia, all that sort of stuff. And if they felt that you looked right, and you have to remember, this is a different time. So people, you know, the Army, the Navy, not the Air Force at that point, obviously, but the Army and the Navy were offering a very different life. Accommodation, meals, and of course, representing the monarch. That was the big selling point. However, it sort of took a turn for the worse, because as the public houses really took grip in the 1800s, more so because they became more luxurious, more homely, you know, fires, welcome people. If they were living in sort of poverty, then if they sat in a pub for a few hours, they could get warm and for a few pence have a very nice, you know, glass of beer. Women were still seen as not necessarily welcome. Yes, how times have changed, eh, chums? Now, where this gets interesting is apparently the Queen Victoria, didn't like this process, because it was told to her that certain aspects of her army and her navy had been recruited in this way, and apparently she didn't know that this was how this sort of went around. So it was under her sort of instigation to start to operate proper recruiting venues, officers, that sort of stuff. Give people a chance to learn more about the venture that they were going in, whether it was the Royal Navy or indeed the British Army. And a lot of the people who were running those places at the time didn't like this, because they felt that then they had to come to them. They felt it was better to go outside public houses, perhaps people who had, you know, had one too many and thought it was quite nice. And once you'd signed up, you couldn't really retract. Once again, a leading light in the monarchy, Queen Victoria, said that that was unfair. She didn't want anybody forced to represent her around the world. And so really, under her sort of very polite instigation, what we see now is what you call army recruitment. Most of it, as you can imagine, is now started online and through TV ads and on things like Instagram and X. But way back when, it was all in an office, and nobody dare cross Queen Victoria. Rightly so, eh? Neil Sean in the heart of the United Kingdom.